Breaking right now, Vice President Harris's campaign, which just began today, has announced a whopping $81 million fundraising haul since she entered the race. That is the largest 24-hour total of any candidate in U.S. history. The Republican National Committee says that former President Trump will win because he is uniting Americans as the Democrats, quote, fall apart. So who better to talk to about this than the RNC co-chair, Lara Trump. Lara, great to have you. I mean, obviously, raising money is a big part of this whole process, and that is an impressive haul for the new candidate on the Democrat side.
Yeah, well, Martha, we heard a lot about the donors, obviously, on the Democrat side, who were saying, hey, we're not giving any money because we don't trust that Joe Biden actually has a shot at beating Donald Trump. And they really questioned whether he was mentally able to be president for 4 more years. So clearly, these are a lot of people who I think were probably holding back their money. And now they're coming out and they're saying, OK, you guys got rid of Joe. Now we're going to put our money behind the candidate. And the sad thing, I think, to me, Martha, is, yeah, that's a big number. But these are these millionaires and billionaires people have to remember out there who are willing to do anything to stop Donald Trump, no matter how bad it might be for this country. And quite frankly, I can't think of something more frightening than Joe Biden running the country, except for maybe Kamala Harris as the president of the United States. So believe me, we're ready for whoever it might be. And we still feel like we have the best candidate, and we will present that to the American people over the next 3.5 months.
Obviously, one of the pushes, this is from a Trump super PAC ad, will be something along the lines of this. Watch at home.
Our president is in good shape, in good health, tireless, vibrant, and I have no doubt about the strength of the work that we have done.
But Kamala knew Joe couldn't do the job.
I guess my question is, I mean, obviously it's a strong point and it's an important thing to think about. I think a lot of Americans are thinking about what was covered up at the White House, but I just wonder how much it matters to their own lives and how much time you all plan to spend focused on that.
Well, I certainly think that people have a lot of questions about who knew Joe Biden really could not, really do the race to become president again. Should he even be in the office right now? Martha, people want to know, can we see Joe Biden? I think we all have a lot of questions. And anyone who has aided the cover up of what we, the people of this country, need to know about our commander in chief, about the leader of the free world, that is hugely problematic. But yes, you're right. We actually have to talk about, and we plan to talk about, the fact that every bad decision that Joe Biden made, Kamala Harris was there step for step with him. And let's not forget the fact that this woman was given one job whenever she took the role as vice president. Borders are. It's what everyone talks about. And yet you have seen the most porous border under her leadership, and I'll put that in air quotes, as the borders are. This entire administration, I mean, we've had 11 million plus illegal immigrants come over the southern border. So we're presenting an America to people under Donald Trump that they can actually hearken back to. You remember how much more money was in your pocket, how much more secure our border was, the fact that we had peace agreements instead of wars breaking out around the world. Those are the things the American people want to talk about. I look forward to hearing from Kamala Harris how she plans to do any of that and defend the bad policy decisions that she and Joe Biden put in motion that have taken this country in the wrong direction. So she has a lot of questions to answer as well.
Well, obviously, they're going to do a big run up to their convention as they try to organize what this is going to look like. And you all had a very successful convention. I heard it from people on all sides of the aisle that it was executed very well, and that credit should go to you and to Michael Whatley as well. As I said that night, it wasn't Clint Eastwood talking to a chair. It was pretty lively, and it moved very well. It was all very well choreographed and well done. So congratulations to you. But they're going to work on that now. The next question is the debates. And I saw a post from former President Trump saying, putting some question marks on the ABC September debate, which was supposed to be against Joe Biden again, and now I guess would be against Kamala Harris, also suggesting that maybe we would do that debate. Is that debate in flux? Is it a question mark now, Lara?
I think, as far as Donald Trump has always said, anytime, anywhere, any place, he is willing to talk to the American people any opportunity he gets, and he's happy to go on a debate stage. I think it's pretty funny because we kind of alluded to this happening. If you think back last week to our campaign, when asked if J.D. Vance would actually be debating Kamala Harris, right, we said, we can't say yes or no because we don't know who the VP nominee will be. Here we are. It would only happen on Sunday, Martha. So it's moving fast. Donald Trump is not scared of a debate with Kamala Harris.
Well, we look forward to that. We'd be happy to host it, and we'll see where all that goes. Lara Trump, thank you. Great to see you.
Thank you.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.